everybody. I'm Johnny Macabre, and this is first episode of Macabre Monthly. With me is my co-host Jesse Gilbert, and also joining us we have our special guest Adam Marcus, among other things, the director of Jason Goes to Hell, in its 25th anniversary year. How's it going, Adam?
It's going great, guys. How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Not bad, man.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah, and definitely. And this is actually our second time trying to record this episode, and it's actually, I would actually say it's a bit of a benefit that we did have to postpone it a month because we did have that new news regarding Jason Goes to Hell. It's having a director's cut screening at Horror Hound Weekend this year.
Sure is. Yep, I'm really excited.
I'm sorry, that had not been announced by the last time we tried to record this.
No, it was kind of amazing. They actually reached out regarding Secret Santa, my new film, and in our conversations about it, we spoke about the fact that it was the 25th anniversary of Jason Goes to Hell, and that Kane Hodder was going to be coming out to Horror Hound, and they said, hey, because Horror Hound is a convention and a festival, they said, look, we'd love to screen Secret Santa, and we'd love to do Jason Goes to Hell and Secret Santa as a double feature with you there. And I was like, hell yeah, let's totally do it. And Kane is like over the moon excited, and we're going to present the film together. So it's, it just turned out to be this very, very cool event. I'm really excited. It's amazing, too, because it's the same weekend as London Fright Fest, which Secret Santa is in as well. And so I have to go. I'm flying into Indianapolis for the 24th to do signings all day, and then to screen both films. Morning of the 25th, I'm heading out to London so that I can be there for my screenings at Fright Fest literally the next day. So it's a little nuts, but it's awesome. It's great nuts.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it is going to be on Friday then, the screening.
Yes, the screening is on Friday, August 24th. I'll be at the convention all day. Kane and I are actually sharing a booth to sign autographs for fans and all that good stuff. And then that evening we're showing Jason Goes to Hell and Secret Santa back to back.
Fantastic. All right, awesome. That's awesome. So and this is the director's cut of Jason Goes to Hell. Is that correct? That's what I read.
Here's the thing. It's funny. That's always been sort of a misnomer for that cut. It's the unrated cut of the movie. It's the thing that you can't get on Blu-ray. It's the one that the original commentary track was recording to. So it's actually a projected DCP of the unrated cut. So you get the full tent kill. You get all the kills are there. So that's fantastic. When we say director's cut, I'm hoping, and it's looking more and more like a likely possibility, that there will eventually be an actual director's cut of Jason Goes to Hell, which would differ greatly from even the unrated cut. So it is the first time. By the way, it's the first time that the unrated cut of the movie will be screened.
Really?
In the Midwest? Yeah, dude. No, it's crazy because again. I have a DCP of the movie that I created of the film, so they never released prints of that version of the movie, even though there are work prints of it. They never released that, so you were able to see it on VHS way back in the day if you got the unrated cut of the movie, and if you happen to have the DVD of it, it's on there as well. But it's never been projected, so. Yeah, this is the first time we're projecting that version, so it's really exciting. Yeah,
that is really cool, and I know that the actual director's cut is definitely something you've been talking about wanting to do. I mean, I know you said that's you and I are producing the documentary for the 25th. 25th anniversary, and I know that's one of your main goals with this documentary is to try to get a director's cut out there.
Absolutely. And, honestly, the idea for the director's cut came really from guys like Brandon Scott Murphy, who who's a brilliant, artist and sculptor, and he was the one who actually kind of reached out to me and was egging me on about a director's cut. And, look, I made the movie 25 years ago, for God's sakes. I'm doing other stuff, but I have to say, I would love for people to see what my actual, vision for the movie was. Because there was more story and there was more character development and there was, look, the thing about Jason Goes to Hell, and look, I know there are detractors of the movie. I get that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot in this podcast. But the thing is that no one can deny that the movie isn't batshit crazy, that the movie doesn't have a ton of effects. Back when effects were really, rubber and blood and all this good stuff that we used to do. So it's got a ton of practical. At that point, it had more kills than any Friday the 13th. And look, I'm sure someone will call me arrogant for it. I don't care. I think we have the best kills of the series, and I think we're the bloodiest, most over-the-top, fun kill fest of the franchise. And the thing is that, it's great for people to finally get a chance to see that version in a theater, projected. That's awesome. But for me, there was more story to tell. There was more fun to be had, and I think that the movie is so chock full of the red stuff that I think having a little more conversation, a little more character development will only enhance how those scenes play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually have a couple questions. So,
yeah.
I actually work for another podcast, Death Curse, ran by Nathan Barker, who I know you guys are familiar with.
Yeah, I know Nathan. He's a great guy.
Yeah, good friend of mine, man. Death Curse is on hiatus right now because he's been actually busy helping with a lot of different projects. But so as far as he's taught me a lot more about Friday the 13th than I ever knew. Like, I'm a fan, but like I learned so much from Nathan. He knows everything.
Sure.
So
sure.
When it comes to Friday the 13th in general, I've heard a lot of people talk about the tie-ins between 9 and the comics, where it's been kind of outed that Jason is a Deadite. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm the one who started that. So.
Oh, awesome! I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, I'm the guy.
I love that idea. I love it.
Thanks, guys. No, here's the thing. So your question was about Jason as a Deadite, and I
Yes.
love when people get pissed off about this. That's my favorite thing. I love when people have a reaction of like, "No, he's not. Look good." I'm like, okay, all right, calm down.
It makes complete sense to me, though. Like,
right. That's the point. That's awesome. It does make complete sense.
It does.
The issue, look, here's the thing. When I was writing the story for Jason Goes to Hell, and when Dean and I started writing the script for the movie, the thing that we wanted to make a cornerstone of the project was logic. And yes, it's horror movie logic and Jason logic. But my problem is, okay, so think about this. Sean Cunningham, right, who created this whole thing as far as a production and directing standpoint. Victor Miller created the movie. He created the story, and there's a lot of people who are like angry at Victor Miller right now. They shouldn't be. He's the guy who wrote this. No one gets angry at Neil Simon because he claims ownership over The Odd Couple. He didn't direct The Odd Couple. He wrote it. And writers create. And I'm a writer. I stand with Victor Miller on this. I get it. I get his point of view. I know what he's going through, and I've worked for Sean Cunningham, so I really know what he's going through. Here's the thing. When they created that movie, they created a movie about a mother taking revenge for her dead child, her dead special needs child. Okay? Well, that movie was not about a lumbering maniac in a hockey mask at all. It's not even a little bit about that. Jason literally has less than 40 seconds of material in the entire first movie. He is a child. He is somehow, at the end of the movie, he somehow rises from the waters of Camp Crystal Lake after having been drowned for 30 years. Guys, That's a monster. If that creature in the lake is real, it's a monster. So we're talking about someone who still looks like a little boy, still looks like he did when he drowned, when he jumps out of that lake, except he's got more, smush on him. He's got all that swamp stuff. But he is still that hydrocephalic-headed little boy. Okay. Within a few weeks, he somehow grows 2 feet, finds suitable attire, drives to a location which he must have somehow researched through the yellow pages at that time to find Alice and murder her in her house. Then he collects her body and the head of his mommy, which he did bring with him to put in a refrigerator. So now he's got a head, Alice, which he drags back to Camp Crystal Lake, so that years later, when people come back to Crystal Lake in Friday the 13th Part 2, he is now the Elephant Man living in a shed with Alice's body and his mother's body and his mother's head. Okay, so someone explained to me how this guy grew 2 feet, learned how to drive, found a way to locate Alice, and then bring all that stuff back to Camp Crystal Lake. That's just between the first and the second movie.
Right.
Now let's flash forward. He is beaten to shit from Part 2 to Part 4 to a point where he absolutely is hamburger meat by the end of Part 4. I mean, one of the greatest moments in the whole franchise, and one of my favorite moments, is when Corey Feldman goes apeshit on Jason at the end of Part 4. Well, by the way, he crushes that guy's skull. He just tears Jason apart. Okay?
Which is how you kill Deadites.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Now, we jump, Part 5, which, by the way, I think is a gloriously sleazy, terrific movie. And Deborah Voorhees, who's a good friend of mine, she is so glorious. And just for her alone in that movie, I love that film. But in that movie, you got a guy who's pretending to be Jason because he's got a picture of Jason in his wallet from a news clipping. I mean, what photographer took that picture of Jason? Like, was it his last photo? Did they find the camera? I mean, it's, again, ridiculous, right? We jump to Part 6 after somehow trying to make Tommy, at the end of Part 5, he's going to be the next Jason. He's going nuts, crazy. Well, Part 6, which, again, is my absolute favorite of the series, my favorite film of the series, and I'm including mine in that. That is my favorite. What Tommy McLaughlin does in Part 6 is resurrect Jason through a lightning bolt strike with a big piece of gated metal that goes through Jason's heart. Okay. Guys, we are no longer talking about a hydrocephalic little boy who jumps out of a lake in Part 1. Then he fights Carrie in Part 7, and then he takes a boat trip to Montreal in Part 8. Okay. This is no longer a real person, and there's something for a lot of the fans. They kind of identify with Jason in some way, in this sort of heavy metal, headbanging way, which is awesome. Yeah. But he's a monster. He's not human. He's this other thing. So when we were approaching Part 9, everything for me was about logic. The opening of the film, for example, we were like, look. I said to my team, okay, guys, this guy has killed over 100 people in less than a half-mile radius. Folks, that's no longer local jurisdiction. That's a federal problem. That's a serial killer on a grand scale we've never seen before in this country. They would have the feds out there. So the logic of, okay, the federales are now coming for this guy. They're going to deal with him. It's not going to be, 3 paintballers in the woods. This is a real problem. So that's why blowing up Jason occurred, was because there has to be a sting operation. And of course, how would the feds sting this guy? They would bait him with an agent who's, incredibly hot like Julie Michaels, and pull him out of hiding, and he takes the bait. Awesome. When it came to Jason as a character, I was like, okay, And again, by the way, I couldn't say this in 1993 because everybody would have gotten sued. But what I did was I said, look, when I was a little kid, when I was back in '82, my friends got a copy of the original Evil Dead on VHS. And by the way, this was a bootleg copy of the movie, so it was really grainy and effed up. It was awful. But as we all know, it made the movie scarier. When you see a bad version of a really, really scary horror film, it's so much creepier. So we watched it in his basement, and I was madly in love. I was in love because The Evil Dead it's that kind of film that, especially for a child, and I was a kid at the time, you look at that movie and you just think, like, I can really make that. I can make that movie. I can do that. And, with things like, Sam's invention of his shaky cam in that movie, where literally two guys are running with a plank of wood with a camera taped to it. It was the kind of filmmaking I understood. It was the kind of filmmaking that I thought was attainable. Nothing got me more excited than that movie. So when I went to make Jason Goes to Hell a decade later, I went, wait a second. Why don't we connect this to a whole universe of horror? And again, guys, this is before anybody was making universes. This is before Marvel. This is before DC. This is before all of this stuff. And if you watch Jason Goes to Hell carefully, you will see I have connected it to so many other horror films on purpose. Most specifically, of course, the Freddy films, because we were at the house that Freddy built. But guys, I mean, Creepshow is hardcore.
You had the crate in there. You had the crate in the basement.
Yep.
I connected us to Alfred Hitchcock. The jungle gym at the end of the film is the actual jungle gym from The Birds. I put a giant metal bird on top of the jungle gym just so people would get it. I went out of my way. What?
You might have been like the first film to actually do that. And I love, you started really a trend. I love horror movies that do these little Easter eggs. Like Bride of Chucky had the evidence lockers. Even that new movie. It's a newer movie. Have you seen the movie Stitches?
Oh yeah.
I have not seen Stitches.
It's a horror comedy with a killer clown, and the kid in it.
Oh great!
He has like nightmares, post-traumatic stress induced nightmares, and he takes medicine for it. And you get a close up of the pill bottle. It's Hypnosil.
Yep.
Right. That's awesome. No, here's the thing. I wanted it to be. I wanted to kind of connect the Friday 13th lore to all these other things because yes, were people talking about team ups? Sure. I was less concerned with team ups and more interested. Look, my problem with most modern horror films, and especially the slasher genre, is that the heroes are never as interesting as the villains. And I think that's a huge mistake. And by the way, it's why Creighton Duke got created, which we'll cover, I'm sure, later on. But here's the thing. When it came to the Deadite situation, I was working with Bob Kurtzman and K&B. K&B was just doing production on Army of Darkness. So Bob invited me out to the set up in the California desert where they had that giant castle set. And so there I am with Kurtzman and Howard Berger and Greg Nicotero, and we're all hanging out. And in fact, I got to play a Deadite in one thing, and I was running around with the Deadite puppets. I mean, it was amazing, guys. And again, I was 20.
That's great.
I was 22 when this happened. So I mean, truly, I was a kid in a candy store. And I said to Bob, Bob, listen, would it be okay if I asked Sam to use the Necronomicon? Because the guys had made several Necronomicons for Sam. And he was like, well, why do you want it? And I explained to Bob what my thought was about Jason. And I said, look, I can't say it's the Evil Dead. I can't say it in the movie. But what I can do is I can show that prop inside the Voorhees house, because my feeling is Pamela Voorhees would do anything to get her Jason back.
Yeah.
And I think that she made a deal with the devil. I think she made a deal with the darkness and brought her son back as one of the Evil Dead. And that's why he can live for 30 years in a lake. That's why he can grow 2 feet in a month. That's why he can do all of the things he's doing, because he is in some way sentient. And I also said, I think it's more interesting if Jason is Hell's assassin rather than this lumbering guy who's, killing for mommy. Oh, boring. I mean, in the second movie, that was awesome. By the 7th movie, Jason's not killing for mommy anymore. Stop. Oh, my God. How dull is that going to end up being? So I wanted it to be this story about a mother's love who would do anything to bring her son back. She does, and now she's got this little monster that she's dealing with. Now, the monster's loyal to her, but it's still a little monster.
Did you know about one of the deleted scenes they had for Jason X, where they actually tried to we're going to go along that same idea with the holodeck, the holodeck scene. One of their ideas was to have a hologram of Pamela Voorhees to distract Jason instead of the campers, and he was going to kill his mother to basically show that he basically has just evolved and just moved away from serving.
You don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I actually think that's so much more interesting. I can also tell you that literally I can hear the meeting with Sean Cunningham where Sean Cunningham says, "Oh, cut it out. You need more boobs in this movie. You don't need an old lady. You need boobs."
Well, also, I don't think they could get a hold of what's her face.
I can't argue with boobs.
By the way, I'm not saying that I know that I know that's for a fact. I just know it's true.
Right.
Like, that's a Sean Cunningham meeting. The number of meetings I had with Sean about breasts was extraordinary. And by the way, listen, I love breasts. So the more the merrier. That's fantastic. But look, I'm sure Todd Farmer was like, wouldn't it be cooler if he kills his mom? Because Todd's kind of a badass dude, and I can totally see him going that way. So no, I didn't. I mean, I went to a lot of screenings of Jason X. To when they were putting the film together. But I never read that version of the script. No, so I didn't know that scene existed. But it's a much better scene in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
So I have a question.
It's great. Yeah.
So, you're talking about a lot of the tie-ins to the different universes with Jason. Now, you mentioned something specific about how, he suddenly grew taller and he came out of the water and went monstrous. By those standards, could that technically make Jason the shortest kaiju in existence? Weird point, I know, off the wall, but...
I'm not going to go quite that far. I think it's awesome. And look, I think the funny thing about Jason is that I've always seen him, especially because it's such an American mythology, as kind of the horror movie version of a wrestler. I think him and Leatherface both have that sort of wrestler quality, and I think it's part of their appeal. It's your favorite wrestler, and he never loses.
They had a crossover. Did you know that?
I didn't hear that. No, I did not know that.
Actually, it's the same guys who did the adaptation of Jason Goes to Hell, the Tops
that's
comics.
Awesome.
They did a Jason versus Leatherface comic.
Yep.
Oh no, that I knew. No, that I knew.
Okay.
I thought you meant a wrestling thing. I know. Trust me, boy, do I know about Jason versus Leatherface. Absolutely. Since it's, it crosses the streams in my life as well. Look, I think the joy of Jason is this mythology, and I know that there are guys out there who are like, fuck Adam Marcus and his mythologies. Well, okay, whatever, dudes. The truth is, there is a mythology. There needs to be. It's why Freddy is such an interesting character. There's such a myth about him. It's quite frankly why Leatherface has lasted as long as he has. And again, what's great about a character like Leatherface is that it's connected to a real killer. It's just Ed Gein. I mean, that's who that is. So I think that for purposes of Jason Goes to Hell, I wanted to give Jason what those other franchises had, which is a more interesting, more layered backstory. Give him a little more Michael Myers.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that works right. And you definitely, like, you brought in, like, that whole family element that, runs through most of the Halloween movies.
Absolutely. And again, guys, look, Jason is a deadite. That's what he is. So people can argue with me about it. I made the movie. So that was my thinking. That's where my head was.
I love how in they've tied everything together. Have you read the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash comics?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And
I love they even made Freddy a deadite, basically. They made the Dream Demons. Right. They came from the Necronomicon. The Dream Demons that gave Freddy his powers.
And Darien Demons. You gotta love them.
For my money, man, I would kill to see an Ash versus Jason movie. I would kill to see that movie. That movie would be badass.
Yep.
Because, again, you'd have a hero that was as substantial as the villain.
For sure. I mean, and that's definitely something like you need if you're gonna have a versus movie with Jason. I think you need to have like that really really talkative foil. Like people have talked about like
totally great.
Jason versus Michael Myers, and like okay, you're just gonna have these two silent guys just stabbing each other over and over. It's
exactly.
That's why it works so well with Freddy. And and Freddy has that same exact personality as like Bruce. He's just that wisecracking wacko, really. You know?
And for me, the problem with an Ash versus Freddy tie-in for me is that it's too much banter. That it's two guys who are way too similar. Where I think Ash versus Jason, you've got the wise talking guy and you've got the silent golem. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. I think that would work really well. I did hear, and another person that loves like this whole idea of like this monster movie universe with all these slashers. You know who else loves that idea? Obviously, is Don Mancini with Chucky.
Yeah,
he has talked about that type of stuff. Like he has talked about he would want to see Chucky meet up against Freddy, and but it wouldn't be like an actual brawl between the two of them. He could see the two of them like meeting up and then challenging each other to go out on a town and just see who could kill people the most creatively.
Sure. Look, I mean, my issue with Freddy versus Jason is that I don't know what the beef is. That's always been my problem. There was nothing in that movie that set up an idea that somehow this is for all the marbles. It never felt that way to me. It was like, oh, these are the two biggest villains, so they're gonna fight. Why? Back in the day, Dean Lorey and I had come up with a pitch, and we actually talked to New Line about it. And then New Line, of course, got bought by Ted Turner, and they killed all horror for a decade. But we had an idea much more akin to the idea of like there's a real reason these two guys are going after each other. And I feel like Freddy versus Jason, while it's fun and there's so much sort of like glorious shooting and violence, and I mean it's really fun. It didn't for me. It didn't live up to the promise of why are they so pissed at each other.
Right.
Like, what's
I mean,
the point,
Jason, I don't think you really need an actual rationale for Jason to be pissed at someone. Like, Jason's just gonna fucking kill people. Freddy, I mean, Freddy, to make things personal for Freddy, you do kind of need like an actual. I think you're right. You do need like an actual reason.
Well, Freddy's modus operandi is I murder teenagers. Well, okay, so he's upset that there's somebody murdering teenagers? He would never be upset by that. He'd actually be quite thrilled.
Oh, yeah.
So, for me, it always felt a little bit soft in simple premise, which is you got to give them a reason to go against each other. And look, Jason spends most of his time hunting teenagers because that's who killed his mother.
Right.
So, if the shark likes that flavor, I understand when he kills adults. That's fine. That's great. My movie is mostly populated with adults. I just want a reason. I want a reason why he and Freddy went after each other, and I never felt like that's really fully explored in that movie. I think it's the fault of that movie. Yeah.
Now, what do you think of Jason not harming children, as we saw in like 6? I mean, that's definitely something that they showed, and that was interesting. It shows like almost like, I don't know. They've basically showed that he will leave children and even animals alone.
Right. Here's the thing. The animal thing I understand simply because he does not give a shit, so it's not important to him. The child thing, look, again, for everybody who wants to say, Jason is a shark and he just cuts through people. Well, he empathizes with children because he was a child and he was ignored and was allowed to drown as a child. Here's the part of it that doesn't make sense to me. And I'll let you in on something. When we first were doing Jason Goes to Hell, I wanted to shoot, this is again before anybody was doing stuff like this, but I wanted to shoot some promos for the movie that would be shown in theaters that were kind of unexpected treats that would lead up to the movie. And one of the ideas was I wanted to shoot, because it had never been done at that point, I wanted to do a winter scene at Crystal Lake. And I wanted a frozen over Crystal Lake and a bunch of kids going out to play hockey. And Jason lumbers out onto the ice. And these kids start playing hockey, seeing that this guy is their goalie, and they are shooting pucks at Jason. Jason then grabs one of the kids, tears his arms off with, still holding the stick, and starts beating these children to death. And the last moment is just a child's head rolling into the goal. And I wanted that to be one of the promos for the movie. Because, here's my feeling, I don't understand Jason being nice to kids. Because when Jason was a child, he was horribly bullied by other children.
Right.
So I don't understand his kid gloves. He's not Frankenstein's monster. He's Jason fucking Voorhees. And so for me, I go, well, it really does work against the story, not for it. I could understand if he found a child that was similar to what he was as a child. That's interesting. When my wife Deborah and I, when we wrote Texas Chainsaw, one of the things that we really tried to explore in that movie, and of course they did some of it in the film, and a lot of it got left on the cutting room floor, or really even before they even shot the movie, they'd cut stuff of this. But we actually wanted Leatherface to be Frankenstein's monster. We had moments of tenderness for Leatherface because I was like, wait a second, no. Jason is in its own way sort of born bad. Leatherface isn't. Leatherface is a horribly abused kid. He is also a cross-dresser, which is something that people never talk about in those movies. I find that amazing. Like, Leatherface is a transvestite. He just wears women's skin. He's Jamie Gumb. He's, again, he's Ed Gein. So here's this guy who's sexually confused, who was abused horribly as a kid. And so we wanted to have moments, the Frankenstein giving the Daisy the little girl moment, that kind of thing. Right. We wanted that stuff, So I understand it with certain horror characters. I understand it with certain monsters. But for me, Jason is a different thing. And again, because for my logic, he was a Deadite, he is pure evil. He is just evil. And I think that's more interesting. Look, it's why I love Michael Myers so much. Michael Myers, he's pure evil.
I will say the kid thing seems circumstantial. Awesome. He doesn't really come across that many kids in the series. And I truly believed he would have killed young Tommy, Corey Feldman, had Corey Feldman not did what he did with the masks and etc. I think he definitely would have killed him.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree.
I don't see it as there being really a kid thing for him so much. Now, Michael Myers, there's definitely a kid thing for. There's a kid thing with a couple people, but I just feel like the kid thing for Jason is just circumstantial.
Absolutely, and by the way, it's funny, the Michael Myers thing. I think you're right on the money. And I would have totally look. The funny part is that Rob Zombie almost kind of pissed all over that. And went, no. Michael Myers kills anybody. Because
I'm very
in
strongly opinionated against the Rob Zombie's versions.
No, I get it. I get it, and so are so many people. Look, by the way, the thing about Rob is that I think he's kind of brilliant. I think it was the wrong franchise. It was the wrong franchise for the wrong director. He's so good at what he does. The problem is Halloween is not a story about people who live in trailers and junkyards. And that's the mistake. Halloween is a Midwest horror. Halloween is the boy next door. That's what's so terrifying. It's that it's the kid that you grew up next to, and he's the murderer. When you put it into the sort of Devil's Rejects world, you miss the point of what Carpenter was doing in the first film, which was, it's it's not that guy that is fucked up. It's the guy you don't know is fucked up.
Right.
He honestly,
he did it because his mommy was a stripper and his daddy's abusive. I hated that.
Right, exactly. It's so much more interesting if his parents are wonderful parents. And he's got a great sister, and she wants to sleep with her boyfriend, and I mean it's just normalcy. Horror coming from normalcy is so much more frightening than horror coming from broken horror.
Right.
By the way, in that case, but again, House of Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects all day long. I think Rob is kind of extraordinary. And and I've said this a million times. The biggest fault I find with horror audiences in general is horror audiences are always asking for different. We want something new. We want something more exciting. We want people who take risks. We want to be shocked.
And then when you give it to them, they all complain about it.
You bet.
Oh,
and look, Jason Goes to Hell is a perfect example of that, because look, here's the thing. If I was making part 4 and I did what I did with Jason Goes to Hell, I could understand people being pissed off. I totally get it. I made the 9th movie in the franchise. At that point, you had, one movie with a killer mommy, one movie with, the Elephant Man, and then 7 or 6 movies with a guy in a hockey mask. Even though part 5 is a different guy in a hockey mask, but that's what you did. And I went, okay, guys, you gotta want something different now. You can't want the same fucking movie. Like that's a giant mistake. And I'm telling you, everybody who dislikes my film, when I break it down for them and I say, okay, wait, so you hate the movie. I got it. Okay, you hate it. So did you hate the acting? No, the performances are pretty good. Did you hate the characters? No, I like the characters. The characters are like cool and funny and different than the other. Okay. So do you like the effects in the movie? Oh, badass girl in the tent kill, best kill of the series. Okay. So what you're saying is you don't like that we blew up the hockey mask 10 minutes into the movie. That there's not enough hockey mask in the movie. Yeah. Oh. That's crazy. And by the way, it's why so many interesting filmmakers leave the horror genre. Horror's dude, horror is, for a filmmaker, it's Candyland, man. Like, you can do anything you want. I mean, anything. And you make movies that audiences have a visceral reaction to. That's a rarity in our business.
Definitely.
You know how many dramas get a visceral reaction from an audience? Not many.
That's why
most comedies, if they get a exactly, because they're not crowd pleasers. They don't have that thing that makes us excited to go to the movies. Horror does. Here's the problem: when you go online, the day after a horror movie's release, and people just beat the shit not only out of the film, but out of the person who made it. Why would anyone want to keep doing it? And look, here's what I find amazing. Then you get movies that are just pure gore. It's just blood and guts and bullshit. And those movies get nothing but love. from the horror community, and I go, wait, guys, this movie is knuckleheaded and stupid, and it's basically porn for people who like gore. That's all it is gore porn. That's it. But those movies get such rally cries around them and so much love. And then when filmmakers try to look, a great example of this, right, is The Witch, right?
Yes, I
the
love
number
that
of people,
movie.
because by the way, because it's incredible, because it's a great movie, but it's also an example of how horror fans can't have nice things.
Right. Babadook too. Babadook. Everyone,
Babadook.
Number of people I
Absolutely.
see hating Babadook.
Absolutely. Now, by the way, okay, let's take something like It Follows, right? I don't like It Follows.
Yeah.
I don't like that movie. I really don't. But you know what? I'm so psyched it came out, and I'm so psyched that people saw it. And when somebody says, I really love that movie, I go, that's awesome. Like, I'm thrilled that you love that movie. It didn't work for me, and I don't want to go into why. It's way too long a list. But I'm so thrilled when something different slips through and people adhere to it, and people go, this is fucking awesome. But however, The Babadook is 40 times the movie that It Follows was. Babadook is an incredible film, and people piss all over it. And I go, wait a second, guys, listen, I can understand if it doesn't work for you. God, I mean, another great example, and again, it's a movie that I have huge problems with, is Hereditary. But
I have not seen it yet.
And I won't spoil anything for you on it. And again, I have very complicated feelings. Because there are things about it that I adore and things about it that I was like, oh, come on. But I got to tell you, it's refreshing. It's a different voice. It's a different way to make a horror film. It is in many ways, it rips off a lot of other movies, and that's okay. That's cool. I get it, and I do the same thing. It's referential on our genre, which is always a good thing. But I just keep watching. I mean, a D+ cinema score, really?
Yeah.
But I mean, that movie's going to get a worse cinema score than a fucking Saw sequel. Are you kidding me?
Jesus, yeah. And they're making more. I think they announced another one.
Yes. Yeah. But guys, but what I'm saying is that's the problem for guys like me who want to make really cool new voiced horror. Dudes, look, Joe Dante walked away from our genre. John Carpenter walked away from our genre. I mean, and by the way, listen, I think everybody needs to hold their expectations for the new Halloween. John didn't write it. John didn't direct it. John's doing the music. And let's remember, John Carpenter produced Halloween 3. So
I'm one of those weird people that loved Halloween 3.
Wait. I do too. I think Halloween 3 is terrific. And by the way, I think Halloween 3 is more what Carpenter wanted to do with the series, which is he wanted to make scary stories about Halloween. He didn't want to tell 10 movies about Michael Myers. He had no interest in it. And he proved that by walking away.
Any other title on Halloween 3, everyone would love it. It's because it's Halloween
I agree with you.
and does not have Michael Myers. Everyone loses their shit.
That's actually not true. Michael Myers technically does make an appearance in that film.
Yeah, he does. He does.
There is a scene with a janitor that has a scar under his eye named Mikey, who sweeps blood or something. I forget what he sweeps out of a room. But technically, in the canon of the Halloween franchise, that's actually the cult that he was born into that's not brought up again.
I have made that connection. That's basically the Druidic cult from 3. They basically retconned it to be the same one from 4 through 6.
Yes.
But wait, but here's my issue with that, because I do have an issue with that. Okay. The movie Halloween is in the movie Halloween 3. It's playing on a television.
Yep.
So right there, they flat out say Halloween the movie is a movie.
Yep.
Right.
They don't say Michael Myers is a real person. They kind of strip the film of that connection by showing the film in the film, which again is John Carpenter's tip of the hat of, guys, this wasn't supposed to be about Michael Myers. This was supposed to be scary stories of Halloween.
Right.
And I love Halloween 3. I'm a huge fan. But again, not unlike my film, which, by the way, my film gets called the Halloween 3 of the Friday 13th franchise more than often, guys.
I don't get that at all.
I honestly think that Friday the 13th Part 5 would be more the Halloween 3 of the Friday the 13th franchise.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's funny. Yeah.
Halloween is also the most broken franchise of all of them.
I agree. Because
I would disagree with that. I would say Texas Chainsaw. Literally, there is not any single 3 movies that you can string together in a single continuity. Like, every single other installment is a sequel to the first one, ignoring everything else.
It's absolutely true. And the reason for that, honestly, but the reason for that, and it's a really good point, the reason for that is because Toby set the bar on that. Because Texas Chainsaw 2 is not really a horror film, it's really a comedy. It's really a commentary, which, by the way, I love that second movie. I think that second movie is great.
Okay.
It's so good. But here's the problem: there was no way to follow that movie. There was no way to follow.
Everyone died. Everyone died.
Well, except for the lead, for Carolyn Williams' character, and they could have moved forward with her. But that was at a time when no one was going to finance a movie about a chainsaw wielding.
I mean, the whole Sawyer family died at the end of it.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
By the way, it's why Toby signed off on our script, because even Toby realized, I killed my own franchise with the second movie. Why don't we do something that's connected directly to the first film? That isn't a prequel, that doesn't go backward into the Sawyer lineage, but that actually takes the movie forward. And that's, I got to tell you guys, God rest his soul, but, getting the call from Toby with the thumbs up about our script was one of the coolest calls I ever got.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just felt like, yeah, man, that's awesome. He loved our script. Again, our script took a lot of hits on the way to production, and they changed. There was no fucking cell phone in our script. Didn't exist. The movie took place in 1993. It did not take place in 2013. The character is 20 years old. She was born right before the first Texas Chainsaw. It put her squarely in 1993. And in fact, there was even a joke in the script that in the background of one of the shots in the local movie theater, Jason Goes to Hell was playing.
That's awesome.
So, the stuff that people are furious about in that movie, especially the time continuity problems, they weren't in the script. We actually had all that stuff very, very solid in the movie. But again, I don't disagree. Look, I think a lot of these franchises, let's be honest. I mean, you watch Freddy's Dead and you go, well, that franchise is kind of broken up too.
Yeah. I think they all are.
Sure. Yes. And again, look, the only movie that we really disregarded for Jason Goes to Hell was Part 8. And I was flat out told to disregard it. I was told that movie does not exist.
That's sad, because I love Jason 8.
I get it, man. But I'm telling you that the movie was so derided by fans and critics when it came out, and it put you in a place where you went, where do we go?
Right.
Jason he's been dissolved in some kind of nuclear sludge and turned back into a baby. What's happening? And so that was the one movie I was told you forget that even happened.
Right.
Okay, cool. Got it.
You have a special place in my heart because 9 brought it, back to Ohio, and I'm an Ohio native. We actually have a legend kind of similar to Jason that took place at a local Camp Crystal Lake. I shit you not.
That's awesome.
And the weird thing about it is, it's like a 20-30 minute drive for me. I can drive to it at any time. And all the cabins have been torn down except for the main cabin. And it's like an actual living community now. But the weird thing about it, here in this area, between that area and Springfield, Ohio, which, as we all know, is Springwood, but the city of Springfield tried to sue, so they changed the name to Springwood. The Kruger and Voorhees family is actually related here.
Wow.
So it's a lot of weird information. And the actual original story of Freddy was actually based on a serial killer from Springfield. like we have a lot of weird stuff like that, and a lot of strange like horror tie-ins and stuff. But yeah, I mean, any movie that's about Ohio is automatically a winner in my book. And I remember, I will say this as PG as I can. The first time that I ever partook of the Devil's Lettuce, I was watching Part 9, and I had to turn. So for some reason, we had to turn it on mute, and I actually ended up watching for the first time the majority of the movie by reading the subtitles. And the opening sequence, with the agent and everybody coming out and shooting the government and everything, when she's dying on the screen, it says "ah." That's it. And it made me laugh so hard, I cried.
That's awesome.
And now every time I watch that movie dying, I look over whoever I'm with and I go, "ah." It does not work on DVDs. It is only the original VHS version with a closed circuit TV. That's the only time you can see that pop up.
That is awesome. I will tell you, it's interesting that you say you watch it on mute. I watch every film that I make when I'm in my closing out to my edit. I watch the film without sound because I graduated from NYU Film School, and the first movies you make at NYU are all silent, and it's so that you don't rely on dialogue, so that you tell your story visually. And to this day, every film that I've made, I watch silently to make sure that visually I'm telling my story, that everybody will be able to get it. No matter what language they speak, they'll still be able to understand the story that I'm trying to tell.
Definitely. I think that's the most pure way to review it, really.
Yeah, but the thing is that I like watching it simply as a filmmaker for the technical aspect of going, okay, am I completing my thought visually, not just from a dialogue standpoint? Because it's very easy just to make it about dialogue, So that's why I do that. Yeah, it's an exercise.
There are always
my first film.
There are always two movies within a movie. There's what the dialogue tells you, and there's what the actual picture tells you.
Absolutely.
And the biggest struggle, I think, is making those two things meld together. In a lot of cases with a lot of movies, not just horror, it's very disconnected between the dialogue and the picture. And
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, like modern day, have lost sight of that.
Yeah. Well, and also, look, let's be honest. I mean, we're also in a period where the thing that seems to sell most is spectacle rather than storytelling. And by the way, I think it's why the Marvel films are so beloved, because I think it's actually a great mix of storytelling and spectacle.
For sure.
But again, it goes back to my issue with a lot of modern horror, is that the heroes are not as interesting as the villains. And when you look at a Marvel movie, the reason we're so invested is that the heroes are as interesting as the villains.
They actually have a reverse issue. A lot of their villains are very one-dimensional.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what? I find that very much so in the DC universe. I don't find that as much in the Marvel universe.
The complaint that I've heard a lot is that a lot of their villains, I mean, there's obviously Loki, who's awesome. Thanos is great. The Vulture was even great. But a lot of the villains are, they're very generic. I'm just going to destroy the world with insert blank,
For me, it was all about like Venom and Carnage, I think. Specifically with the Spider-Man series. I thought that those were probably two of the greatest villains as far as fleshing out backstory, character development that they've done. But I think the spectacle thing is true, but I mean, at the same time, DC has the spectacle, but their story is just so bad that...
I agree.
And they have horrible casting, I feel. I feel they have very horrible casting that just really fails to meet, like, the fans, the people who have, like, read these comics for a long time. They're just not bringing these characters to life properly. They're not putting the right people in these roles. I mean, they're talking about putting Tom Cruise in the shoes of, in the role of Green Lantern and Kristen Stewart as Batgirl.
Yeah, I'm worried about that.
Well, here's the thing. Kristen Stewart is Batgirl. But I would say, look, I actually think Tom Cruise's Green Lantern is kind of great. I'm
willing to give anything a shot until I see it. I love DC for Batman. That's the only thing I care about in the DC
Well,
universe
that's
because
true.
of
Yep.
all the H.P. Lovecraft tie-ins, and that's about it for me with DC.
Yep. No, dude. I look. And again, my my feelings regarding DC are more about the creatives, because what I love about Marvel and what I think they do really well is that they allow the guys who actually wrote the comic books to guide the stories.
Yep.
That's true.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
It is.
And DC, I think DC hiring Brian Michael Bendis away from Marvel is like the best move they've ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's saying, you know what? We have a story problem. And that's what Marvel doesn't have. Marvel doesn't have a story problem.
Nope.
Marvel, look, Kevin Feige, what he's done in, I don't know if you guys have seen Ant-Man yet, or the latest,
God, yes.
Ant-Man vs. Wasp. Ant-Man and Wasp. It's terrific. And here's the thing. The genius of that is they just put Thanos on us, right? They just gave us this heavy movie, which was terrific. And I loved the Avengers Infinity War. I thought it was terrific. But here's the thing. That movie was such a downer. It's so you're heartbroken at the end of that movie. And Feige follows it up with, you know what? We need a comedy. We need a light, ridiculous, great fun comedy. That's genius. Because it instantly wakes you up and go, oh, that's right. These movies are fun. Awesome. And
you're
back in again.
Depressed again.
Exactly. Well, depressed, and also there's a great moment of like, oh, how is that going to play in the next movie? Like, that's almost the fact that Ant-Man is stuck where he's stuck. You're like, wait a second, what are you guys setting up? So there is a certain amount of joy.
Figure out exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
I heard they had actual counseling tents set up at Comic-Con for people who had seen Infinity War.
Yep.
And I get it. There are people who are really, I'm telling you, dude, there were people sobbing in our theater. And here's the thing. Yay! Like, come on, man. I mean, look, when I saw Empire Strikes Back, there I am. I'm 12 years old. And I was like, wait a minute. What? Where's Han?
Tear up every time Han is frozen in carbonite. Every time.
Absolutely.
Every time. And then when Force Awakens came out, I did it all over again.
Yep. Great filmmaking. It has to take us to a place where there's loss, where there's tremendous loss. And look, by the way, going back, getting back on track to where we all are, horror movies, it goes to my point. I don't understand horror where you lose a character and you just don't give a shit, or you're having way too much fun at their demise. That's the stuff. That's the kind of horror films I don't get. I love movies where I care every time somebody gets killed. I'm so much more interested in that. Look, the best example of it is the opening of Scream. I mean, Wes was such a good filmmaker. He was so smart. Here's a guy that in 8 minutes made us absolutely madly in love with Drew Barrymore's character and praying that she was somehow going to survive that moment. That's great filmmaking. That's genius. So for me, look, and Wes did it over and over again. I mean, literally, Nightmare on Elm Street is another great example of that. The Hills Have Eyes is an incredible example of that. And
Michael
he also
in those
always
movies.
Oh, so good. But he also always made his heroes real people. He made them foible. They had problems. They weren't perfect people, but you gave a shit. Serpent and the Rainbow is another great example of that.
Oh, my God.
I think that horror fans need to really want movies that challenge them, and we should be demanding characters that are as interesting and as textured as characters in a great drama. Why not? Why shouldn't we have that? Of course we should have that. It just takes more work on the part of the screenwriter and the director, but do it.
I'm
we'd
somebody
also
that
end up with
craves
better
character
actors.
development. Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Look,
I
when you
like
guys
a
see,
slasher, a pointless, kill
sure.
free movie, but like what I love is story.
But by the way, the best slasher movies are still the slasher movies that have characters you give a shit about.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, Friday the 13th Part 2 is a terrific movie because there's so many of those people that you really like. I mean, there's a reason Amy Steele is everybody's favorite final girl out of those movies. There's a reason.
Oh, yeah.
She's adorable. She's great looking and adorable. But you go, that girl kicks some ass. That's a really capable, can-do woman who's brilliant, who figures her way out of being slaughtered.
Yeah.
That's. Yeah, I look. I love a good romp and a good, fun, silly movie. I love it. But you know what? I mean, I love when people try to denigrate even like comedies. Police Academy is a great movie.
Oh God,
it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Police Academy is as important a film. Right. It's as important a film as, Downton Abbey, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
There's no, I can't stand film snobs. I can't stand them. And it's like, why is that better than that? Because you say so? Because somehow a British accent makes it? What?
I've still never even seen Downton Abbey. I might be the only person left on the planet that has it.
Wait, and by the way, I'm not denigrating Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey's awesome. And again, great storytelling is great storytelling. My problem is people who somehow put things like horror movies on the bottom shelf. By the way, we're the top shelf. We're the top shelf when it comes to our industry. Horror movies are the thing. Horror movies and comic books are the only thing that sell anymore. We're the thing that keeps our industry alive. We do. And when I say comic book movies, I'm including things like Mission Impossible in that because it's truly a comic book. These are the films that people want to see. They are the e-ticket rides, and to somehow always treat them. Look, The Shape of Water, right, was not my favorite film of last year by any means. But I got to tell you something. I was standing up and applauding every time it won an award at the Academy Awards because I went, no, guys, we matter. Like, this genre really does matter. Silence of the Lambs is one of the finest films ever made. It's a horror movie, guys. I love when people try to go, it's a psychological thriller. No, it's not. The things that Hannibal Lecter does in that movie, human beings can't do. He's a monster. He's a monster. He cannot do those things. People can't do the things he does in that film. You can't
I'm a little tangent. I'm going to see Silence of the Lambs, the musical, this weekend here in Buffalo.
Awesome.
Oh my God, this is awesome.
Silence of the Lambs is one of the first films I worked on when I was still in college. I worked on that film for our Greenberg and Associates. No, dude, I have an education in New York because while I was still in college, I worked on that. I worked on Goodfellas. I worked with Brian De Palma. I mean, dude, I had an amazing education, so I was very, very lucky, very blessed with that.
Now, I write horror
novels. I do want to say, I think we're reaching we're running low on time here.
Yep.
Cool. So I do think we do need to wrap things up. Definitely, before we let you go though, why don't you? I know you've already mentioned it. It's going to be in that double feature of Jason Goes to Hell. Can you give our listeners a short spiel on Secret Santa, your latest film?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. That makes me. I have such a smile on my face right now. The Secret Santa is my return to horror as a director. While I've written a bunch of horror over the years, most of my directing has been in comedy and action. I've come back to horror in a big way, mostly because I think there's this kind of cool renaissance happening in horror. Even though the audiences are still split on things like The Witch and Hereditary and things of that nature. For me, I find it to be kind of a bold, exciting time to be able to tell stories again in horror. To that end, I'd also become really tired of sort of the way the studio system kind of crushes projects. And I get why. It's about money, and they have every right to do it. They're the ones paying the bills. So I have full respect for the studio system. But for me, I got really excited about the idea of making movies that I want to make, stories I want to tell, and the way I want to tell them. So I partnered up with my extraordinary wife and writing partner of the last 2 decades, Deborah Sullivan, and my best friend, a guy named Brian Sexton, who's quite a genius himself. and the three of us formed Skeleton Crew. And the first film out of Skeleton Crew is a movie called Secret Santa. It's going to be released late this year, just in time for the holidays. And it has been murdering it on the festival circuit. And our reviews have been extraordinary. It's just been like rave after rave. It's been so gratifying. The great thing with this film is I did it in a way that is super down and dirty, super low budget. And I shot the film in 11 days. 11 nights.
Wow.
And it's crazy because there are 13 lead characters in the film. And those 13 characters are in most of the scenes. So you're talking about covering 13 people for a film.
Yeah.
In 11 days.
Right.
So it was a Herculean task, but it's something I'm so super proud of. The concept is, what if you got a chance to go home for Christmas for the holidays, and suddenly everybody started saying exactly what they feel about each other. And then everybody started doing exactly what they'd like to do to each other. And you get Secret Santa. It's about madness and about the way families really think about each other and really feel about each other. And what would you love to do to that family member you can't fucking stand? What if you did? What if you just got a chance to do it? So it's gruesome. It's gory. It is funny as fuck. It is so funny, guys. We actually just won best comedy at the Silicon Beach Film Festival in LA. And it's one of those movies that people who like hate horror movies, and I'm telling you guys, it is gory. Bob Kurtzman came and did all the effects in the film for me.
Nice.
As super gory as it is, and as super kind of violent and crazy, every person who has said they hate horror movies, I can't stand horror, oh my god, horror, they love this movie. It's becoming the horror film for people who hate horror movies. So it's really I'm very proud of it. My cast is made up of all people that I've been working with for years. Because I teach acting and directing in LA. I have my own studio in Culver City at this great place called ITA, which is right next to Sony. And I've been teaching actors for 20 years in Los Angeles. And so this is my troupe. These are the people that I work with every week. And so you got some just incredible performances, but in amongst those, we got some names. We got a guy named Michael Rady who has quite a following. We have Drew Lynch. I don't know if you guys have ever seen. He was the number 2 guy on America's Got Talent a couple years ago. He's a stuttering comedian.
Okay. Yeah.
He's brilliant guy. He's one of the leads of the film. I've got this incredible cast, and it's just a really funny, gory horror movie. So yeah, Secret Santa's it's the film I am the most proud of, and it's the birth of a production company where we're doing a ton of other movies right now, and it's really all been about giving people their dream job. This guy named John Esposito has been my closest friend for the last three decades, and we met when I was doing Jason Goes to Hell when I was pre-producing it. And John wrote Stephen King's Graveyard Shift back in the day. He was also the producer of From Dusk Till Dawn for Tarantino and Rodriguez. And he's won the Writers Guild Award 2 years in a row for The Walking Dead. So this is a guy who is really, pretty substantial, amazing writer. He's wanted to direct his whole career. He's never been given a chance. And so, so John's going to be, writing and directing a film for us next year. Bob Kurtzman is directing a film that I wrote with this wonderful guy, Jeremy Paddo, years ago. And the Soska sisters are directing a film for us. They're also directing one of the sections. They're the best. They are amazing. They're directing a feature for us, but they're also part of an incredible anthology picture that we're doing. That they are directing an episode of. So we're kicking ass right now. It's an incredible time. It's all very creative, and it's about people getting to do the thing they love and getting to do it with people that are really as passionate about the genre as we are. And there's a sense of ownership over your product. So it's a very different way to make movies. It's really cool. I love it. I've never been so happy. Yeah. So Secret Santa's killing it, man. Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it at Horror Hound, and that will be Horror Hound weekend, last weekend of August in Indianapolis. Anyone who is attending or wants to attend, you'll be able to see both Secret Santa and the Jason Goes to Hell unrated cut, back-to-back double feature. Sounds like very good.
Yep, you bet.
And
it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to set up some way I could do fan interviews, so hopefully that happens. So yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for being on the podcast, Adam.
Definitely.
It was great having you on. Definitely
My absolute
love to
pleasure.
have you on again at some point down the line.
Yeah, I'd love it. You guys are awesome. Great conversation.
All right. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Very, very cool. So yeah, this is the first episode of Macabre Monthly. We'll be back on next month. We're trying to set up things. Looks like we will be having David Howard Thornton, that is Art the Clown from Terrifier. So it should be a fun time.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
All right, see y'all next time.
Later, guys.
Sounds great. Later, guys.